The sun was dying over northern Burkina Faso, spilling orange light over roads cracked by dust and scorched by fire. Villages smoked in the distance, echoes of destruction lingering in the air like a warning. And there, standing alone on a broken checkpoint, was Captain Ibrahim Traoré. His uniform was streaked with dirt and sweat, his boots caked in mud, his eyes locked on a figure barely 50 meters away, a figure whose name alone had terrorized entire provinces, Commander Amadou, a man whose cruelty had turned families into rubble and whose men had left villages in ashes. But today, the battlefield was quiet. No gunfire, no shouts, no reinforcements. Just two men, face to face, caught in a moment that would define the fate of a nation. The wind stirred the dust around them, carrying with it the scent of burnt timber and a tension that felt almost sacred. For months, Burkina Faso had bled. Rebel groups held vast swaths of the north. Villages vanished under flames. Families fled, leaving everything behind. Captain Traoré's unit had been leading operations to reclaim territory, their bodies exhausted, their souls worn thin by endless loss. They had seen mass graves, burned schools, orphaned children wandering aimlessly on empty roads, and at the heart of that nightmare was Amadou. Once a soldier himself, he knew tactics, strategy, how to strike without warning. But what defined him was not skill, it was fear. Brutality was his signature. When his forces swept through a village, they left nothing but death and despair. Some whispered he had lost his humanity long ago. Others said he had never had any to begin with. The encounter happened almost by chance, though some would later call it fate. Traoré's unit surrounded a rebel compound near Djibo. Intelligence suggested Amadou was present, but when the soldiers breached the area, it was nearly empty. Fighters had vanished into the bush, and there he was, Amadou standing alone beside a burned-out vehicle. No weapon in hand, hands at his sides, clothes torn, face smeared with dust and dried blood. Exhausted, defeated, human. Traoré's soldiers froze. Some raised their rifles, trembling with the memory of fallen comrades. But Traoré raised a hand, signaling them to hold. He stepped forward slowly, each boot crunching against broken glass and debris. The silence was deafening, heavier than any gunshot, heavier than any command shouted in battle. As Traoré approached, he saw Amadou's eyes. Not the eyes of a monster, not the gaze of someone unfeeling, just a man who had done too much, taken too much, and perhaps seen too much. "You know who I am," Amadou said quietly. Traoré nodded. "I know exactly who you are." Another pause. "Then you know what I have done." Traoré's jaw clenched. Every muscle in his body was coiled, tense. Behind him, soldiers gripped their weapons. Anger, grief, and years of trauma pressed down on every man. Amadou looked past Traoré at the armed men surrounding them. "They want to kill me," he said softly. "I would want the same if I were them." Traoré's voice, steady yet strained, broke the silence. "Why didn't you run?" Amadou's eyes flickered. Pain, regret. He looked down at his hands as if seeing them for the first time. "Because I'm tired. Tired of running, tired of killing, tired of what I've become." Traoré felt something stir in him, not sympathy, not forgiveness, but a recognition that the cycle of violence consuming Burkina Faso had also consumed this man. Perhaps Amadou had once been someone's son, someone's brother. But then, flashes of horror pierced that thought. Mass graves discovered 2 weeks earlier, the burned school with tiny shoes scattered across the courtyard, the little girl wandering in shock on the road, all traced back to this man. "You expect mercy?" Traoré asked, his voice hard. Amadou shook his head. "No, I expect justice. And I know what justice looks like for someone like me." One soldier stepped forward, Sergeant Ouedraogo, whose family had been slaughtered 3 months earlier by Amadou's men. His voice shook with rage. "Captain, give the word. Let us end this now. He deserves nothing else." Others murmured in agreement, voices rising. The tension was electric, almost unbearable. Traore closed his eyes for a moment, weighing the weight of command, the weight of every life lost, every village burned, every child orphaned. To fire now would satisfy revenge. To hesitate could risk everything. But in that moment, he remembered why he had stepped into leadership in the first place. Not for vengeance, not for fear, not for power. He had taken responsibility for a nation drowning in chaos, believing there had to be a better way, a way that honored life even amidst war. Ouedraogo's voice broke through. My sister was 7 years old. They came to our village. She was carrying water from the well. This man's orders killed her, and them all. I live with that every day. Don't make us watch him walk away. The captain turned to face his men, the walking wounded of a nation torn apart, their faces etched with grief, anger, and betrayal. I hear you, he said. Every word, every loss, every pain, I feel it too. He turned back to Amadou, still standing with eyes closed, waiting. You are right to want justice, Traore continued. But if we execute him here, what does that make us? Warriors seeking a better Burkina Faso? Or just another group adding to the cycle of bloodshed? Voices shouted back. He's a murderer. He deserves death. Traore nodded. Yes, he is a murderer, and he should face justice. Real justice. Not the satisfaction of revenge, but the kind of justice that shows the world who we are. Even in our darkest hour, we do not lose our humanity. Ouedraogo's shoulders shook. My humanity died with my family. All I have left is anger. Don't take it from me. The words hit Traore like a physical blow. The struggle was not only Amadou's fate, it was guiding his men through grief without letting it consume them. Hatred hollowed people out. He had seen it. He would not let it destroy them. Traore's hand rested on his sidearm. One shot could end this moment, end this story, erase the pain. But he recalled his father's words, spoken long before coups, before chaos. Son, anyone can be strong with a weapon, but it takes true strength to be just when you have every reason not to be. Now, in that dust-choked compound, the words rang truer than ever. This was the test. Amadou opened his eyes. I don't ask for mercy. I don't deserve it. Decide quickly. This waiting is torture. Traore studied his face, seeing neither manipulation nor guilt, only resignation. The wind swirled dust around them. A distant dog barked. Life continued, indifferent to the moment. Then, slowly, deliberately, Traore lowered his hand. His voice carried across the compound. Commander Amadou, you will face justice, but not here. You will be taken into custody. You will stand trial. You will answer for every crime, every life taken, every family destroyed. Burkina Faso will see that even in war, we are not barbarians. We are a nation of laws. Silence fell. Then chaos erupted. Captain, no! Shouted Ouedraogo, lunging forward, held back by fellow soldiers. Others screamed, He'll escape! The courts are corrupt! Yet Traore remained unmoved. Silence, he commanded. The authority in his voice cut through the anger. Slowly, voices fell, leaving only heavy breaths and stunned eyes. I know this feels like betrayal, Traore said. But I am not choosing him over you. I am choosing who we are. Every execution feeds a cycle that never ends. If we kill him now, it is one more act in a chain that will never break. Tears streamed down Ouedraogo's face. You didn't see what I saw, Captain. You didn't hold my sister's body. Traore placed his hands on the sergeant's shoulders. I didn't experience your pain, but we have all lost someone. That is why we fight. And if we do this right, justice, not vengeance, can give meaning to what we've lost. The soldiers shifted. Rage remained, but a new understanding crept in. Traore addressed them all. I am not asking you to forgive him. I am asking you to be better than him, to help me build a Burkina Faso where justice matters, where we do not replace one tyrant with another. Amadou's expression changed. Shock, perhaps remorse, flickered across his face. This man will face trial, Traore repeated. And the world will see. Survivors will confront him, and our country will know we mean what we say. Change is possible. Slowly, soldiers began to nod. Not all, but enough to see a glimpse of something larger than revenge. The commander was secured and transported to Ouagadougou. Those unwilling to follow the order were free to leave. Most stayed, moved by the possibility of a nation reclaiming its soul. Amadou, bound and silent, realized this was no ordinary act of mercy. It was a revolution of principle. News spread like wildfire. Outrage erupted. Families protested. International observers questioned the strategy. Yet in the weeks that followed, the trial of Amadou became a national reckoning. Survivors took the stand, naming the dead, telling stories of pain, of terror, of lives stolen. Amadou sat through it all, a man facing the weight of every choice he had ever made. One witness, Fatimata, told him, "I prayed for your death every night, but seeing you here, listening, this is better. You cannot hide. You must confront the world you destroyed." His shoulders sagged. Emotion, whether real remorse or just the weight of consequence, broke through. The trial lasted 6 weeks. Media coverage spread across Africa and the globe. Slowly, the narrative shifted. Leadership through principle, not terror, was possible. Other rebel commanders, witnessing the trial, began to consider surrender rather than violence. Months later, units disarmed voluntarily. Villages reclaimed life. The cycle of bloodshed, once unstoppable, began to slow. Inside the army, the transformation was profound. Ouedraogo, once ready to kill Amadou on the spot, spoke publicly about rage turned into purpose. "I carry the pain of my family," he said, "but I no longer let it consume me. We can be strong and just at the same time. That is what my sister would have wanted." 5 years later, Burkina Faso held its first democratic elections in over a decade. The country faced challenges, poverty, corruption, sporadic violence, but the soul of the nation had shifted. Traore, now general, cast his ballot. When asked if he regretted sparing Amadou's life, he smiled. Every day, and never. That decision proved we could be better than our worst impulses, that justice could exist even when fear demanded revenge. He added, "If the system fails, we learn and try again. But abandoning principles for fear, that is the only true defeat." That day at the compound, I chose not just Amadou's fate, I chose ours. I chose to believe in a Burkina Faso capable of something greater than violence. The story of that dusty checkpoint, 2 men facing each other in silence, and one act of courage became legend. Schools teach it, communities retell it, journalists recount it across continents. A nation once consumed by blood learned that mercy is not weakness, that justice is not vengeance, and that leadership is measured not by power, but by the courage to be human when it is hardest. And that is why the story of Ibrahim Traoré will never be forgotten. The day a captain chose law over revenge, principle over rage, and humanity over bloodshed changed Burkina Faso forever.